everyone, it is 2021 and I haven't filmed in a while. Just wanted to enjoy the holiday season, plus I was busy working a lot, but finally I have time to film. I decided to do the best and most disappointing books I read in 2020, so let's get started. I'm going to first talk about the best books I read in 2020. The first one is The House on the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. I gave this a 5-star rating, and I think it is the best book I read in 2020. It was such a feel-good book. I loved every minute of it. It surprised me. It's not something I usually would gravitate towards, but my friend recommended it and she loved it, and so I had to read it and I loved it as well. It does read like a middle grade kind of book, but it does have like adult themes like prejudice and all that, so you do get that light-hearted feeling when you read it. I loved the story, I loved the characters, everything about it. I did a whole video on it, so I'm not going to talk too much about it, so if you want to know more, check out that video. The next one I'm going to talk about is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I read this and also listened to the audiobook. I did enjoy the audiobook because it's told in like a story mode, because it is a historical fiction novel about a fictional actress named Evelyn Hugo, and she is finally ready to tell her life story, and she picks an unknown reporter to do so, and so this reporter comes and Evelyn Hugo just tells her life story, and so I really enjoyed listening to it because it feels like you're listening to Evelyn Hugo tell her life. It's such a great book. I liked this way better than Daisy Jones and the Six. I loved how diverse this book was. Evelyn, I believe, is Cuban in this book. I could be mistaken. And Hollywood definitely whitewashed her to become more popular, and the unknown journalist that she picks to help tell her story is black. And there is LGBTQ+ representation. Evelyn's story is heartbreaking. This isn't a spoiler, but Evelyn Hugo is bisexual, and she had to keep her relationship with a woman private, and this woman was the love of her life, and she had to go through so much because Hollywood wasn't ready for two women to be in love, and so you see everything that they had to go through to be together, or how they had to break up at times. It was just so heartbreaking, and I really liked the character Evelyn. She knew who she was. She knew that she had to do some awful things to be as popular as she was. In the sense, like, she backstabbed people, and she was blunt, and she went for it. She didn't apologize for that, which I love that about her. A strong woman is usually criticized and usually kind of takes a back seat, but not her. She fully admits that, yes, she will do what she has to in order to succeed, and I loved that. In the year 2020, I made a goal to read the Lord of the Rings series, and unfortunately, I didn't reach that goal. However, I read 2 of the books, and they have become my favorites, and that was Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, and The Two Towers. I need to read The Return of the King, and so I'm going to do that soon because I loved these books. The Fellowship, it does take a little bit to get into it because in the beginning it does read like a history book because you learn so much about the land and the history of the hobbits and all that. But once you get into it, it is fantastic. And I know these aren't for everyone because it is like high fantasy, but it is just so amazing. The characters, the world, there's action, there's everything you could possibly want in a fantasy book. I can't wait to read Return of the King. I've seen the movies, so I obviously know what happens, but these books are just amazing. I highly recommend them. The next book is Shiver by Junji Ito. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that. It is a manga, and it is so up my alley. They are like creepy stories, and the artwork is fantastic. I know manga isn't for everyone, and especially like takes a while to get used to it since you have to read it backwards and from right to left, and so it does kind of take a little time to like get used to it, but I loved it. I will show some of the artwork now. This is the first book that I read by him, and I've gotten a couple more books by him to read. They're just so creepy, and I just love that kind of thing. Next book is Misery by Stephen King. Loved this book. This will definitely be one of my favorite Stephen King books. It's not quite up there like The Shining or Pet Sematary for me, but it's pretty close. This is about Annie Wilkes, who kidnaps her favorite author, Paul Sheldon, and makes him write her favorite story because she doesn't like the ending, and so she kind of like kidnaps him and forces him to write a better ending. I liked Annie as a character because she's just so messed up, and I loved throughout it you get to learn more and more about her, and she's in a character that, you know, like that I love, that it's like, oh, I care what happens to her in the sense. It's more like I'm so fascinated by her. It is gory, and I've seen the movie before I read it, but it is way more gorier in the book than in the movies. And of course, like Stephen King's fashion, you know, the ending is okay. Like, of course, I wanted more, but that goes with all Stephen King's books. For some reason, he just can't write a good ending. The whole book is great, and until the ending, it doesn't match the beauty of the rest of his story. That makes sense. I mean, if you don't like gore, don't read this, obviously. And the last book I'm going to talk about of the best books I read was Member of the Family by Diana Lake. This is a true crime story. It's a true story about Diana Lake's life with Charles Manson. She was a part of the family, and she didn't do any of the killing. She wasn't there. This gave like a different perspective of what happened. I got to really know why these people were so loyal to him. She was very young when she got with him, and in the beginning she was talking about why she fell in love with him and fell in love with this family. And it made sense, but then over the time she was there, he changed. And he got more violent, and he wasn't the man that he once was, and so she was kind of drifting away from him. And so it's like interesting to see from her perspective of everything that happened. Because at first I was really hesitant to read this book because I was like, I don't want this woman to profit off of this horrible event that happened that she was a part of. But the more I read it, she was a victim herself. She was like 12 or 13, very, very young when she got involved with him, and she wasn't one of them, and she even testified against them. And I think if you want to know more about Charles Manson's life and like what happened, this is a great book to read because it does give you a different perspective, and I thought it was very fascinating, and so I thought this gave like an excellent insight into cult family's life. Now I will be talking about disappointing reads. These aren't books that I hated. I think there was only one book on this list that I did not like. The rest I liked. I just was disappointed in them in some way. The first book is The Chain by Adrienne McKinty. It was good. Like, the first half is really good. But then towards the end, it kind of like fizzled out. Like, I was like, okay, what's the point of the story now? I thought when, the chain and when, the kidnapping of her daughter was really great. But then towards the end, I just kind of like, okay, really? This is where it went with. But I did still like it. The next book was About a Boy by Nick Hornby. I watched the movie years ago and I really liked it. And I've read a couple of Nick Hornby's books and I really liked them. This one was just okay. I did not like the main character, Will. I thought he was a jerk, and I thought towards the end he was going to get this big redemption, but he didn't. And so it's kind of like, okay, he's still a jerk. He was a jerk. He's still a jerk. Okay, good. He likes Marcus. He changed Marcus's life. But, like, there was no big change for him. He talked about Marcus's mother's suicide in a gross way. He was just a pig, and I just didn't like him. I thought in the movie it did a better job, and I thought it was going to be like that, but it wasn't, and so I was kind of disappointed in that. Still a good book, just didn't like Will. The next book was The Whisper Man by Alex North. I wanted something more. I wanted something more creepy, but to me it was just like a regular mystery thriller novel. I heard great things about it, and so this wasn't the book that I thought it would be. Still great, like I said, I still read it, I still gave it like a 3-star rating, but the way people talked about it, I thought it was going to be something better. I'm still looking for a great thriller to really like freak me out kind of thing, and this wasn't it. And I thought the ending kind of like was anticlimactic. The next book was Mallory. This is the sequel to Bird Box, and while it was entertaining, I thought it added nothing to the story. I did not like her son, and I just didn't see the point of this. I wanted something more. I wanted to know more about the creatures, but it kind of seemed silly to me. There was a train, there's more people. Like, I just didn't like the way it went. I thought it was silly, and I thought it added nothing new. And I really like Bird Box, so I think that could have been a standalone, or they could have gone more into the creatures, not this whole blind train and, you know, this new society. That I didn't like. The next one is Hand on the Wall by Maureen Johnson. This is the 3rd book in the Truly Devious series. I liked it up till like the ending, because I wanted more. Like, we had this whole big mystery of the Ellingham kidnapping, and then tied into what's happening in the school, why her's trying to solve it, and I wanted so much more. It was just kind of like, that was it. That was boring, that was stupid kind of thing. Why I do like the first 2 books, this one not so much, because it was like the conclusion. You finally find out what's going on, and kind of fell flat for me. The next one is Ready Player 2 by Ernest Cline. I liked this book. I gave it a 4-star rating. I was just disappointed in it. I did not like Wade in the beginning. I thought he completely changed in who he was in Ready Player 1. I mean, towards the middle he did get better because he got his morals back and who he was in Ready Player 1. But in the beginning I was like, who is this person? Who is this character? He completely changed. And I'm not sure how I feel about the ending. I'm not going to tell you because it's spoilers, but I don't know if I think it's a good thing or a bad thing. Like, I'm still torn between it. But I did like it. Of course, you know, there's video game aspects to it, and this whole, like, I did like it. Just disappointing with Wade. But I listened to the audiobook, and Will Wheaton.
I said you ought to be nicer to Will Wheaton.
You mean Will Wheaton?
Yes, Will Wheaton.
Why are you saying it like that?
What? I'm just saying you should be nicer to Will Wheaton. Will Wheaton seems like a nice guy.
Narrated it, and I think he does a fantastic job. Like, I don't think I would love it as much if I read it, but Will Wheaton loved it. I highly recommend it. You listen to it as an audiobook. And the last book I will talk about is The Princess Diaries by Meg Cabot. This is the one that I did not like. I gave it a 2-star rating. I was so disappointed in this book. I love the movies. I think they're so great. But this one was horrible. And I didn't like Mia. I didn't like her friendship with Lily. I thought it was so cute in the movie. But this one, not so much. And what I really didn't understand was, in this book, her dad's alive. So, how do you not know that he's the king of Genovia? Like, she knows her grandmother, she knows all this, but doesn't know that he's the king of Genovia, and she will be the princess. She even did, like, the thing that I was like, okay, what? Is she just as dumb or something? Because she did a report on Genovia, and so she researched it all. So she didn't know, through all her paper and research, didn't go, oh, the queen is blah blah blah. Like, you know, I would think if I researched like England, they would right off tell me the Queen of England and like their family members. So I just thought it was so dumb that she didn't know. And it wasn't the cute, lighthearted book that I thought it would be, like the movie. So if you love the movie, don't read this. Don't read it. It's not going to be the same, and you'll find it ridiculous. So those are the best and worst books I've read in 2020. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you later. Bye!